I've been getting a few questions recently from people that are wanting to get started in landscape photography. You've been wanting to know what equipment I use and what equipment you should be buying. So we're going to start right at the beginning and we'll start with a camera body. I personally use DSLRs. So this is what they look like. They're quite big and they're quite heavy, I guess. They're about as heavy as they look, to be honest. And they're split up into two halves. You got the camera body and the lens, and that's sort of the reason I like these. You can have the one body and a bag full of lenses, and depends on the situation. So say in the past I've shot weddings, commercially, landscapes and wildlife. You can have the same camera body, but you just need a different lens on it. I personally use the 5D Mark III, but the first DSLR that I got was a Canon 600D. That still works. I gave that to my mum, and if I didn't start shooting weddings, I'd probably still be using that 600D because it was ideal for landscape photography. It wasn't too heavy. You could put all the lenses on it, and I think it was an 18 megapixel sensor, so you could print really big on it. I've done 36 by 24 inch prints from that camera, and yeah, they're sharp, like up close. So I could recommend that body. I don't actually think they make that anymore, so I'll link the more modern version, but you might be able to still pick up the older ones on eBay or second hand somewhere. But if you don't want to get a big camera body, you could just use your phone. Most phones have a camera on now, so it's just simple. Click it, take the photo, and I think that might be a good place to start, to be honest. I started with a point and shoot, and I never really found the quality was that good on them. It was worse than what's on my phone now. So the smaller size, and it just works. The downside to that is you can't print as big, but photography is a bit of a game of compromises. You can either have smaller and easier to use and have a compromise, say, in the quality, or you can have higher quality and it's bigger and heavier. So depends on what you're wanting to do. But the second thing is a heavy duty tripod. I've had this one for about 6 years now, and other than where I stood on it, it's still working perfectly. The main reason I'd recommend getting one of these is that when I first started, I didn't understand what all the numbers meant on the back of the camera, so I was pretty much just smashing buttons and seeing what it did. And when it was handheld, like if I was doing a slower shutter speed, I was having that problem on top of all the others. So if you've got a solid base, you can just put the camera on top of there and then change one setting at a time. And I found that's probably the best way to learn, because you can see it changing in front of you, and yeah, it just makes a lot more sense then. When it's just numbers on the paper, it could mean anything. But the other good thing about having a tripod is you can set up the composition and wait for the light. So say now it's just started chucking it down, but I could put the camera on here, wait for that rain to stop, and then when it does stop, I just take the lens cloth off and the lens cap, press the button, and we can catch that better light. A lot of the time with photography, it's just waiting for the light, and if you can get it all ready so you're not rushing at the time, then that makes a massive difference. I think this also levels out the playing field a bit, because with landscape photography, you're going to be using a smaller aperture, so you're going to be around f8, f11, and you can't really tell the difference between an expensive lens and a cheaper lens at that point. Like, everything should be sharp, so even if you're using a cheaper setup, I don't think you'll really tell that much difference compared to a full frame camera. I'd probably say I use this for 80 to 90% of the photos that I take. I just find it's pretty much everything is better about it, apart from the weight. I think this one's 3 or 4 kilos. It's a bit of an awkward size, but once it's attached to the camera bag on the side, you don't really know it's there after a bit. You sort of get used to it, but I don't think I'd go out without this. Next thing is you're going to need something to carry the camera equipment in, and I use this Lowepro Whistler 450AW. It's quite a big bag, so if you're getting started you probably don't need this. You can get smaller ones, and you're also going to need to take out all your day stuff, so maybe got one camera, one lens and clothes for the day, so you can get away with a lot smaller. But in here I tend to take a mixture of lenses, so I've also got the 24-70 and I've got the 135 on there. With the lenses, I tend to find I use the 24-70 most of the time. It's sort of a wide angle to a little bit zoomed in. It's pretty much what your eyes see and then slightly cropped in. And then I use the 135 for picking off details off in the distance. So say 24-70 is for, say, a woodland scene, maybe getting a track through the woods, or maybe up on top of a mountain looking down into the valley, whereas the 135 is picking off details off in the distance. I'm not too sure if I'd recommend the 135 for landscapes. I have that because I did weddings, so maybe 24-70 and a 70-200 would be ideal. Another sort of essential thing is lens cloths. Like on a day like today where everything just gets covered in water, you're going to be wiping the lens down quite a lot. I'm probably a bit blurry, so I probably should have done that one a bit more today. And you'll probably go through a few of those, so it might be worth investing in 3 or 4. And then another thing is polarizing filters. These are good for bringing out the colours, and you can get rid of glare on water. I like these circular ones. They just screw onto the front of the lens, and there'll be a number on the back of the lens cap, so say 67mm, and that matched up with the thread size. So this just screws on the front, you twist the outer ring around, and then you can get rid of glare on water and make blues and greens more saturated, and that can make a huge difference. And you can't get rid of glare in Photoshop, so that's something that you've got to do in camera. I'd probably say they're all the essentials. I've also got ND filters, which are good for balancing out the sky, but you can bracket, which is taking a series of exposures, like one underexposed, one in the middle, and one overexposed, and you blend them all together. Whereas these, it's dark on the top, see-through on the bottom, and then it gets it right in camera. But you don't actually need those to begin with. That's something for further down the line if you find that you want to get more into it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you are also heading up onto the fells, actually, you are going to need to take a map and a compass. You can also get apps for your phone, which I'm not a big fan of. A lot of the time when I've had to help people out on the fells, it's because the batteries run out on the phone and they no longer have a map. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't think there's any excuse for that. So I use the OS maps, and these work really well. You can get waterproof ones for if you're out in conditions like this, and you just need this and a compass and you'll be able to get anywhere. So that's all the stuff that I take every time that I go out. I find that pretty much everything in that bag gets used every time that I go out, so after a bit of time you're going to fine-tune your bag, and because it's annoying to carry, you only carry the essentials. So I hope you found that helpful. This ended up being a little bit more rushed than I would have liked because of the rain, but I think we've got all the points across. But I'm going to link everything that I've talked about down below. I'm also going to do a blog post over at adamcapper.co.uk, and I'll go into them bits in more detail. But I hope you like the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more guides and more behind the scenes photography trips. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.